Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about average retiree income. Where do you stand worldwide?
We all love to compare ourselves to other people for some reason and kind of gauge where we're at, how we're doing, and we're no different. So we tried to dig into this a little bit and find some answers to this. The answers were tough to find, but I think we've uncovered them and we're going to share them with you today. You may be shocked when you get to the end of this where you stand as a retiree or potential retiree, someone who is getting prepared for retirement. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about comparing ourselves, like I said, because that is what we tend to do, and that is something is that we compare ourselves to people that are always like us or near us, and a lot of times that can be the wrong approach.
It can be the wrong approach. It's funny because if you think about, well, I'm 5'4", so it's fairly average for the U.S. for women as far as height and size. But we have been in Asia since June of last year, and I have never felt taller in all of my life, especially when I'm in Thailand and when I'm in Vietnam. Men and women for the most part are shorter than 5'4", and I feel like I'm towering over them. I don't know how the people who are actually tall feel, in those countries when they go to visit, because that's probably why everybody always looks at really tall people when they're walking around. But the thing is, like, I compare myself to, am I short or tall? Like, I've always thought of myself as a short person because 5'4" is not that tall. But if I think of myself in Thailand, I'm a tall person because that's, if I compare myself to the people that I'm around there. And, it's kind of like in a different vein, the whole comparison thing. We have friends who moved from California to Georgia, to the Atlanta area. And when they came to look at houses, they were like, oh my goodness, we can buy like an enormous brand new house. They're like, for nothing, I could be like a sultan in Georgia. This is crazy. They were shocked. But they were comparing, it to the prices back in California. The prices in Georgia are completely different. It's all about perspective, really, in what you are comparing.
So you need to get an idea of where you are worldwide as a retiree, and almost everything we found in looking through this information was just the U.S., and that's super not helpful because most people in the U.S. are pretty prepared or over-prepared for retirement, and you're going to feel underprepared when you're comparing yourself to them. So let's look at some median incomes here. This is for all people. Median income, which is basically not an average. This is the person in the middle. So if there's 100 people, this would be the 50th person. Kind of lops off the high and the low to kind of not skew it. So in the United States, the median income is $65.04 per day. So that is fourth highest in the world, only trailing Luxembourg, Norway, and the United Arab Emirates. So right there you can kind of get an idea of where you stand. If you make more than $65 per day, you're above the median just in the United States. And if you make below, you're below the median in the United States. So kind of gauge where you are worldwide there, but that's the top 10 countries. Now when you start to compare that to other places where you're going to be going in retirement, you really get a sense of what that's going to look like, because we'll pull up Italy here. It is country number 22, and people always say to us, oh, Italy, so expensive. The median income there is $40.67 per day.
Yeah, it's kind of wild because people do always, when they ask me like, oh, what's your favorite country, in like Europe, and Italy is definitely, at the top, if not the top of my choices for Europe. We go there often, and we do enjoy time there, and people are like, how can you afford to go and stay there for so long? We stayed there for 2 months on one of our trips, and people are like, how can you even afford to do that? That's so expensive to live there.
Yeah, and if you look at the median income, the cost of living is going to follow that. because if that's what the local people are making, that's what they're going to be spending, and they have to be able to live, so the costs are going to be in line with that if you are not in a tourist area. And that is what people don't understand, is that the US has a very high median income compared to most of the rest of the world. So that opens up the doors to these other places to be able to go and either visit or live or become an expat long term. Let's pull up the next one here, a place that we love and get a lot of questions about, and that is Vietnam. Now, the median income in Vietnam is $10.92 per day, and that really does match up with what we saw there, because we actually looked up, we were wondering, what the wages were there, and in most of Vietnam, the minimum wage is less than $1 per hour. And it's really striking because people that have never left the U.S., they'll say to us, we had a video out on places you could live on $1,000, and there was a lot of people who commented, oh, like, good luck doing that, or you'll never make it on there. And it just kind of shows you haven't been there, because the median person in Vietnam is living on $330 a month.
That is wild, and that makes it really easy to calculate the fact that $1,000 a month is really not a big deal in Vietnam. It's not that low, and it's not like you're not splurging and also enjoying some great some of the great stuff to do in Vietnam.
Yeah. Now, when we go to Vietnam, we do try to spend $2,000 to $2,500, which can be kind of hard to do. But that's just kind of what our budget is. Our budget is normally $4,000 a month. But I wanted to highlight a comment we got just today on one of our videos that Vietnam was in, and this is a good comment. I'll put it on the screen for you, but it says, "Wow, you spent so much in Saigon, but I live in Saigon, haha. I try hard to spend a lot of money in Saigon a month just to see, and I still can't get past $1,000 a month." And that's the truth. People, this is right from someone living in Saigon who is, an expat, and they cannot spend $1,000 a month. We have figured out how to spend $2,000, but maybe they're there by themselves. But it just goes to show that you're comparing yourself to the wrong people if people are saying, oh, you have to live on this much. There's no way you could do it for less than $2,000. It's so little money.
Yeah, exactly. And if you guys recall, if you've seen our budget videos, our general budget usually monthly is $4,000 a month. So we don't even come close to, we can't even think about that. I mean, we'd have to, rent two places at the same time in order to use up that much money. It would be a complete waste. So we have a video here on the channel where we were trying to, spend as, as much as we could, and we didn't even get to the 2,500.
Yeah. Moving on, a couple other places that we love to go. Thailand, the median income is $12.89 per day. And then Malaysia, a little bit higher at $21.62. And that does kind of make sense. Malaysia is a little bit more expensive when you go than Thailand or Vietnam, but still, an affordable country and a great place to be. So we wanted to kind of point that out as a idea of, if you're in the U.S. and you have an income of $80 a day or $100 per day, you are not as far behind retirement as you think. So let's jump into some of these global retirement readiness scores. And this is a survey put out by Fidelity, which is, a big name in retirement. And they did this study where they determined which of the countries was the most ready for retirement. And not surprisingly, the U.S. came out number one with a score of 83 global readiness for retirement. So the point here is that if you are comparing yourself to others in the U.S., you are comparing yourself to everyone else who is super prepared for retirement. The lowest scoring U.S. section of this survey scored a 71, and that was a category that we were in not too long ago, which was middle-aged workers aged 39 to 54 making $30,000 to $50,000 per year. They felt the least prepared at a score of 71, and we know what that's like to be there.
We do. That was exactly us, to be on, the lower end, and we've talked a lot in previous videos here on the channel about that, and shared a little bit more about it. But it just brings more perspective into, am I even ready for retirement situation?
Yeah. So if you're in that situation, I know some of you watching this are, you're 39 to 54, you're making $30,000 to $50,000 a year, and you feel like retirement is not going to happen. You scored a 71 on the global readiness. Now, the entire country of Germany and the UK scored a 73. So you are basically, if you feel super underprepared in America, you're basically the same as all of Germany and the UK, which also score very highly compared to the rest of the world. So the point here is that when you are underprepared in America for this retirement, you are still probably overprepared compared to the rest of the world. It might not be that you are as unprepared for retirement as you think. You may just be comparing yourself to the wrong people. Now, all of these people that score low in that preparedness scale study from Australia, Germany, and the UK, they're all going to retire. They all do. We see them everywhere we go. we see Australians everywhere retired. And they're doing it, so why are we in that same range told we're not going to make it?
Yeah, and the funny part is that we see them in some of the higher end type accommodations that we're getting for ourselves, and they're in the same places that we are.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like, their budget is so much lower. It's just that we're in places where you are not having to spend so much money.
Another interesting thing from the study was that 70% of U.S. respondents said that they plan to work at least part-time in retirement, which was a little bit shocking, but then when I thought about it, not that surprising, because it does make sense.
Well, it's exactly what we're doing. What we're doing right now, YouTube, we're doing this part-time. We started doing it really just to have something to do. And then it turned into, a small job of sorts. We don't spend but a handful of hours maybe per week to even do this, and yet we're making an incredible income on it. Grew so much. Again, we share videos every month. At the beginning of the month, we share our income as well as our expense report each month. So if you haven't seen those on the channel, check those out. But in March, just on this channel alone, which is not our biggest channel, we have a channel with over 100,000, over 125,000 subscribers on our biggest channel. And on this channel alone, we made over $5,000 in March, which is really kind of wild. So definitely YouTube is a great kind of part-time thing, because I think the great thing about it is you can do it as you go along. You can do it anywhere, and it just doesn't require that much time. We did put a course together. And we've got a link to that down in the description, but we put a course together to kind of help guide people, especially those in our age range, to kind of guide you into what to do. Because a lot of times I think people think that it's like, something for younger people, but it really is perfect to put together with, retirement and full-time travel, because there's just so much to share, and there's so much room for something like that.
Yeah, it really is the opportunity of a lifetime. It's something that you can make a lot of money on. I mean, we made over $20,000 on YouTube in March, and we're only putting in 4 to 5 hours a week doing it. So it sounds crazy, but it's true. You can go watch that video if you want to see all about that. But if it's something where you're feeling like, I need to work a little bit in retirement, it's the perfect thing to do. Now let's talk about average confidence in your retirement, because this was super interesting to us. So this is how confident you are in how prepared you are for your retirement. Worldwide, the average confidence score was 66%. Now the U.S., who we've already stated, is the most prepared by far of any country. The confidence score is only 68%. So we're the most prepared, but only average confidence. Now, why is that, do you think? Is it possibly because we're being told things that are unrealistic? compared to the worldwide stage, it is kind of shocking that we are so low in the confidence scale when we're so high in the preparedness scale and so high in the income scale. That's wild. Now take that against Brazil. Brazil is number one in the confidence scale, 86% confidence, and their median income is $13.49 per day. So you have to ask yourself, why is Brazil so confident in their retirement, but America is not? And it really comes down to cost of living and perception. They are not comparing themselves to us. They know that they can live places for exactly what they have saved up, and they're just not that worried about it. So the rest of the world is not as concerned as we are, and that is just backwards. That is putting so much stress on you as a worker who is approaching retirement that you're never going to make it. You're never going to make it. That's what you hear. You need this big number, and that's what you're feeling. We understand that because we felt it too. And if you go back and watch some of our videos on what we did in our 40s, we definitely felt that because we were struggling so badly. But then we learned this thing that we don't have to compare ourselves to everyone around us. There's a whole world out there, and there's so many paths. There's so many options, and there is an option for you. Now, we're not saying you're going to take the same path or option that we did. The path we chose, we have loved, and it is a great option for many. But just understand, there's a ton of options. There's a ton of things you could do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that comes into play in the U.S. when you were talking about the mentality of the readiness of the, being ready for the confidence level of being ready for retirement, I think a big thing that comes into play for the U.S. is that kind of keeping up with the Joneses, and just that comparing with the Joneses as far as retirement is concerned. And when you're looking at the next person, you're like, oh, this person has a 401k and they have, this much saved and they've been putting this in and they have this whole plan and they're going to do this whole thing. And you're like, oh, I have $500 saved and I don't have a 401k. Yeah. And I mean, that was really our situation. And we just, put blinders on and didn't look at what other people were doing and started looking outside the box. And this is, like you said, what ended up working out for us really well. Yeah,
we have a kind of a saying that we kind of adhere to is, don't worry about what won't work, because there's tons of things that won't work for you. Worry about what will work. And there are also, in any situation, especially in your retirement planning, there will be some things that will work for you. Focus on that, because there are things you can make happen. You don't have to worry about things that don't work. If you're saying, I can never make $3 million and live off of that, that's fine. That's not going to work. You're not going to make that anyway. Work on what will work. That's what we said. We're never going to have $3 million in the bank, but what will work for us? And this is what we decided to do. It has worked. It has been awesome, and we're pretty happy. And we've met so many amazing people along the way that are in their 40s even, 50s, 60s, from Australia and Germany and the UK. And they are just living it up, and they don't have the same kind of concerns that we have as Americans, it feels like.
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to see people from the UK and Australia having the time of their lives, just go pop into Bali, pop into Thailand, pop into, Malaysia, and you're going to see people having the time of their lives, and no worries about money. You just have to have that shift in perspective, or that shift in that comparison, and it really will change things up for you.
Yeah, so stop comparing yourselves to other people in America. That's not healthy. Just figure out what's going to work for you. Guys, we hope this has been helpful. We hope it has inspired you that you can do this, because you can. There's always a way, and you can make this work no matter whatever situation you are in.